you understand?
Science requires a mind. Does science even exist without minds?
Yeah, but do you understand how what you just said is profoundly unimportant, given that it's non-unique to every single discipline you could study?
Yeah, but that's a transcendental argument. So he's making the point that there is no objective moral system that you can find by just science. That's the whole point. So you're arguing for some, well, I just look at the science and that just gives me my worldview. Okay, well, that's still not stance independent, because interpreting science is going to be dependent on your stance, or dependent on your worldview, or the way you interpret the science.
Well, wait a second. You saying that what you say is meaningless has no meaning for an anti-realist.
I didn't say that. Doesn't follow either. It's not as if anti-realists are anti-meaning.
What's the meaning?
I just told you facts. I just told you that the moral facts that are taken up in this worldview are the facts about the requirements to flourish as a human being. But the reason the view is stance dependent is in fact because as an agent, right, you are the thing that's being studied. And in fact, the motivation to adopt a given view turns on you and the fact that you stand in relation to the facts as a human being. So
I see. So then it is the case that anything that we would be arguing about is going to be dependent upon our stance.
In the sense that the propositions are made true by your stance?
Well, that any normative claim that we make are going to require our stance.
It's gonna relate back to your nature, but that's not as if it's like an arbitrary thing. Like you don't.
That's ontological. You can't. How would it relate back to our nature?
Because
what do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Because if you're making a moral judgment about something being good or bad, on Eduardo's view, as an anti-realist, it's about good and bad are relationships that things have to you and your life and the requirements to live. So like, of course, it references back to you.
So it's dependent upon his stance.
And his nature, which is not up to his stance. It's conditioned by both.
Can you demonstrate Eduardo's nature?
Yeah, he's a human being.
What is his nature?
He's a human being.
Oh, okay. That doesn't tell me anything. I'm a human being as well.
Yeah, exactly. You have this. Yeah, you have a similarity of the moral requirements to live your life.
You have. That's the part you haven't demonstrated. What's the similarity of this? Hang on. How is this a requirement?
How is it a requirement? Wait, how is what a requirement?
How is it a requirement that we need normative claims to live our life at all?
Because what it consists of being a human being, or the method in which human beings survive is by adopting systems of ideas and then implementing them into action. That's how human beings survive. And the ideas that you implement are, in fact, those normative beliefs. That is why morality is a practical.
Well, you're granting yourself an awful lot here. First, you need to demonstrate that we need any of these systems to survive. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, that's pretty obviously inductive, because if you take all of human history as the data sample and then you say, how is it that human beings were able to survive? Each and every single time they did something that sustained their life, they applied their mind to reality utilizing a system of ideas.
Wait, hang on. I just want to make sure I got this right. So you're now making a claim that because humans do that, they should do that?
I'm not simply saying that. You asked me what's the argument that the method of human survival.
I'm asking you right now. Are you saying that because
do you want to move points?
Do that? Are you saying humans should do that?
I could say that. That's not the claim I just made. I do think that. But
yeah, but I'm asking you. Do you know?
Okay, this is a new point. Yeah, this is a new point. I do think it is the case. Yeah, I do think it is the case that human beings.
I'm asking you.
Yeah,
don't ask me a question before you answer my question.
No, it's just tangential. I do think it is the case that human beings, and Eduardo thinks this too, that human beings should live in a productive, rational manner. We both think that. Yes.
No. Well, okay. So they ought to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a moral fact?
It is a moral fact, but it's not a stance-independent moral fact.
Well, how would it not be a stance-dependent moral fact?
It is a stance-dependent moral fact. It stands.
Then how? So what makes it? So then it's not a fact at all.
What are you talking about?
It's just a stance.
For example,
what makes it a fact?
example, is it a fact that you like? Is it a fact that you married to your wife?
Well, it's a fact from the stances of our society.
It's a fact. Well, I don't know if you're married to your wife or not, but the fact is, like, if the subject matter of the proposition is a relationship you have to something, The fact is both stance dependent and is a fact.
Well, this makes no sense. Could you, if it was your stance that you were married to my wife and not me, right? Would that also be a fact?
No, because the relevant stance isn't present there.
What would make, so what's, wait, I'm sorry, the relevant what isn't present?
The relevant stance isn't present? Like, you have the relevant stance.
If it was the case that you thought you were married to my wife, that is the relevant stance.
No, the stance of my belief of the matter is not the relevant stance that would make the proposition I am married to your wife true. The relevant stance that would make that true is the position of me being married to your wife.
What would make that true, though, other than it was your stance it was true?
The fact of the matter would make it true. What do you mean?
There's no, well, the fact of the matter is just your stance that it's a fact.
Yeah, stances are, relationships exist in the world. That's why they can make propositions true, and it's why they're facts.
Yeah, but it's all based on your stances.
Oh, yeah, for example, I'm taller than you. That's a relationship I have to you. So it's in fact a stance-dependent proposition. It depends.
Okay,
it's relative, right?
What?
But that doesn't make it less of a fact. That doesn't make it less of a fact because it's a relationship.
You say you're taller than me. What is tall?
It's a comparison in terms of extension.
Yeah, is there an exact inch ratio for what makes a person tall or short?
No, it's ordinal.
So it's based on stance?
Tallness is a comparison based on size. It's an ordinal measurement. You're asking what's the particular quantification.
Yeah, but if you say a person over there is tall, you're not making a comparison necessarily.
You in fact are comparing them to the average person. Yeah, that's probably what you're doing.
Maybe, but maybe not.
Okay, that is in fact what the meaning of the term tall is. It's a comparison.
Could be, but maybe not.
What can you give me a use of the term tall that's not a comparison?
Yeah, you're saying that you think I think that that this is tall. That's it. That what do you don't.
What are you expressing when you say
it does not necessitate? It does not necessitate comparison.
What would you be expressing if you said it was tall if it wasn't a comparison?
Whatever it is that your stance is trying to express.
Okay, I think you've successfully derailed the conversation in you saying that you think that sometimes people use the term tall in a non-comparative way. But like with respect to the point about ethics and stance dependence and stance independence, Eduardo's point is that there are facts of the matter about your life and the requirements to live as a human being. That
what makes something a fact?
But that still doesn't get you to pass the is-ought problem. Just saying that there are supposed facts to staying alive as a human, which I could even agree on. Yeah, there's some objective things you need to do to live. Living is a empirical fact. It's not. Now, if you say flourishing, I'm going to get mad because flourishing is a qualitative term that's involving normative language now. So. But that wouldn't get you to normativity.
What makes something a fact?
Mm-hmm.
Facts aren't made facts. They just are facts.
Well, that doesn't answer the question.
Well, yeah, because the question presupposes a category.
They are because they are as a tautology. Can you tell me what makes a fact?
You're presupposing that it's an explainable phenomena. Like the fact that facts are facts is not in fact.
Then why are you telling me? So what you're telling me right now is that there are facts, but you can't tell me what they are or what that is.
I just told you what the facts are. No. Your question was specifically
I asked what is a fact.
Facts.
What is a fact?
Oh no, that's not what you asked. A fact is an aspect of reality.
Okay, and what makes that a fact?
What makes aspects of reality aspects of reality?
No, what makes a fact requires an interpreter, right?
No. Why would that be required?
Okay, well then what makes it a fact?
What makes aspects of reality aspects of reality?
Well, wait a second. Are you saying that all facts are aspects of reality?
What makes chairs, Andrew?
Hang on. I just want to make sure I got this right. Rights are a fact of reality then?
Rights are facts, yep.
Okay, can you show me how they're factual?
Yeah, rights are factual because they identify the conditions required to live as a human being in a societal context. They identify aspects of reality.
And what would make that a fact?
What would make the fact a fact?
Mm-hmm.
In meeting the necessary.
What would make that a fact? What would make that a fact? Not
what would make what I just said a fact?
Yeah, no. What would make a right a fact?
So what would make the fact identify a fact?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what would make
what would make it a fact? This presupposes that facts are made facts.
So they just exist.
Yeah, facts just are facts. Facts are a brute, right? Facts are hold on one second, Andrew. Facts are ground zero, right? Like facts, you don't have to be made facts.
I see. So if it's the case that facts don't need to be made facts, then these are things which exist absent any minds to interpret them. Is that right?
Yeah, but you would still have the criterion problem. That's why brute facts don't exist, is because you have to determine which facts are brute and which are not, which requires a criteria, and the criteria therefore means it's not, it's no longer brute, it's no longer self-evident. This is one example.
Yeah, facts are the way they are, independent of you grasping that they're facts. Right?
I see. So then, if I had a right to a slave, what would make that not factual?
Well, if you assumed it was the case that you had a right to a slave, then it would have always been the case. But we can debate whether or not the proposition is true, albeit whether it corresponds to the facts. Because the assertion that you have a right to a slave, the debate is over whether or not you are identifying a fact or you're not. Like, that's what the conversation's over. So just the assertion that you have a right to own a slave does not make it a fact.
So then asserting that you have a right to healthcare, housing, and food does not make that a fact either.
Yeah, I agree. We're not liberals.
Great. So then can you tell me real quick where this right comes from for housing and food?
We don't believe in a right for housing and food.
Okay,
I've clarified
that's what the entirety of the conversation was.
No, I've clarified that for you.
Rights. Yeah, the idea was about rights themselves.
Yeah, rights themselves are social, they're moral principles which
Andrew
sanction and
keep
define
just
your
moving
freedom of
goalposts.
action in a social context. That's
So
what a
why
right
don't
is.
I have? So then, tell me something. Why don't we collectively have a right to take shit from other people? If we want it?
Because it violates the requirements of living your life in a society with other people.
Oh, no. We as a society have decided to take shit from another
Yeah, but
society.
society deciding something doesn't change the fact that it's incompatible with the requirements of a flourishing society of cooperation.
How would it be? How were Vikings not a flourishing society?
Because they pillaged and disrespected the rights of individuals?
That didn't seem to stop their society from flourishing.
No, they in fact limited themselves to flourishing because they could have expanded their society and been more productive and achieved more
They
things.
did expand their society. They expanded their society into other
They
continents.
could have
based on
expanded.
conquest.
But they could have expanded the people in their society, the amount of producers in their society, the amount of people that are cooperating. It's the same reason why increasing the supply of people
They did
in
that
any
through
labor market
slavery.
is good.
They did that through slavery.
Yeah, but in fact, slaves are more productive when they're able to think and apply their ideas in the same way Vikings are. Which
They
is why
were
the
allowed
Vikings,
to do that in
which
Viking
is why,
society.
Which is why exactly, if Vikings were slaves, they would not have been.
This is low IQ. Andrew's low IQ and the guy arguing is low IQ. There's a bunch of things there that need justification that he's just spitting out of thin air.
Not all Christians agree how the world will end. Your crazy aunt on Facebook might think ChatGPT will make the rapture happen, while celebrity pastors on Twitter plan to build a Christian paradise that'll conquer the world starting in rural Idaho. The reason for these different views of eschatology, or the end times, comes from different interpretations of this one prophecy from the book of Revelation. So let's go over how different interpretations of that mean very different things for the future. But first, only a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed, so if you want to see more, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind. If you liked the video, make sure to click the like button, and if you didn't, make sure to click the dislike button twice. The Bible is very clear that Jesus will return one day, but even Jesus himself, according to his human nature, didn't know when that was going to be. So it's pointless for us to try and figure that out. No, listen, bro, I solved the puzzle. If you add up the number of...
Also, that's dumb. That's not true. Jesus didn't literally not know when he was gonna die. He's just like asserting his Calvinist... whatever. Alright, go ahead.
Times the Bible says return and multiply it by the number of times the Bible says Christ, you get the year Jesus is coming back, which will be in 1988. There have been many failed predictions about the second coming, so in terms of the timeline, we know Jesus will come back in the future, but we don't know when. But there is something we can try to know. The book of Revelation talks about the saints coming to life and reigning with Christ for 1,000 years, and Satan being briefly released after that. The debate is whether this 1,000-year reign of Christ, or millennium, is before or after the second coming of Christ. Premillennials think the millennium is after the second coming of Christ because they think Jesus is coming back before the millennium. And they think the Battle of Armageddon at the end of time is going to be after this millennium. So if Jesus is coming back to Earth before the millennium, that means the millennium is a literal, physical 1,000-year kingdom of Christ on Earth. which means they have a more literal interpretation of the book of Revelation in general, which means they think the Battle of Armageddon is also a literal war. But if the reign of Christ is something that happens after he comes back, that means Christ is not ruling over the world right now, which means premillennials have a very pessimistic view of how the future is going to go leading up to the second coming of Christ. This view was most popular amongst the earliest church fathers who lived before the Council of Nicaea and before the conversion of the Roman Empire to Christianity. This is because Christianity was illegal and they were heavily persecuted, so obviously they had a pessimistic view of how things were going to go in the future. They expected Jesus was going to return really soon. But after Rome became a Christian empire and things got really good for Christianity, premillennialism faded into obscurity for about a millennium. Now, this view is called historic premillennialism because many modern Baptists, non-denominationals, and evangelicals teach a different version called dispensational premillennialism. It teaches a lot of the same things as historic premillennialism, but it also teaches something called the rapture. There's this verse in 1 Thessalonians about Jesus descending from heaven and believers being caught up in the air to meet him. Traditionally, people think this is referring to the second coming, where believers are going to meet Jesus in the air and then descend down with him. But people who believe in the rapture think this is a separate event from the second coming, where believers are going to be sucked off the earth and the rest of the world is going to undergo the Great Tribulation for about 7 years. Because dispensationalism takes the most literal possible interpretation of the Bible, they think the prophecies about God's people and the city of Jerusalem refer to the geopolitical state of Israel, and that's why they all think Israel is going to have something to do with the end times. So if you see an elaborate chart putting biblical prophecies on an organized timeline, chances are it's from a dispensationalist. Not all dispensationalists agree on the details, but they all agree that you should take every Bible prophecy literally. Dispensationalism has consequences for how Christians interact with the world. If you believe Christians are just going to get sucked off the world, you're not going to care about Christians improving the world. Here's a clip from John MacArthur, a famous dispensationalist pastor.
We don't win down here. We lose. You ready for that? Oh, you were a post-millennialist. You thought we were just going to go waltzing into the kingdom as you took over the world. No. We lose here. Get it? They killed Jesus. They killed all the apostles. We're all going to be persecuted. If any man come after me, let him, what? Deny himself. Garbage of prosperity gospel. No, we don't win down here. You ready for that? Just to clear the air, I love this clarity. We don't win. We lose on this battlefield, but we win on the big one.
Dispensationalists think persecution of the church is the norm, not the exception. That's why they're more popular amongst denominations like Baptists, who think the purity of the church matters more than the power of the church. A very different approach is post-millennialism, where people think Jesus is going to come back after the millennium. A verse they use to support that is where it says, "He must reign until he has put all his enemies under his feet. The last enemy to be destroyed is death," which implies that Jesus will gradually be putting enemies under his feet while he is reigning. Because the 1,000-year reign of Christ is before he comes back, post-millennials are optimistic about the future. They think things are going to keep getting better. Some of them see the 1,000-year reign as a future golden age, and some of them see it as the growth of the church now. But either way, the reign of Christ is spiritual since it happens before he actually comes back physically. So the reign of Christ is really the reign of Christianity, and the reign of Christ over the world through the church. Because of this, their expectation is not perpetual persecution of Christianity, but a golden age in which Christianity dominates the world. Some famous post-millennialists were American Puritans like Jonathan Edwards, who thought America was going to be a Christian utopia, and modern Reconstructionists like Rushdoony, who think we need to reconstruct Christendom and build Christendom 2.0. Similar to this view is amillennialism, which agrees with post-millennialism that Christ is coming back after the millennium, but it sees the millennium as a symbolic 1,000 years between the first and second comings of Christ. So that means we're in the millennium now. Amillennials see the millennium as the time of the church, but unlike post-millennials, they don't think the church is going to conquer the secular world. They think the church and the secular world will always exist side by side, sometimes being friends, sometimes being enemies. They're not necessarily optimistic or pessimistic because they tend to think things are going to go in cycles. Augustine was the first to clearly teach this view. He said the church is the city of God and the secular world is the city of man, and all Christians have to learn to live in both. It's not like the church can't impact the secular world, but there's no promise that the church is going to ever rule over the entire world until Jesus comes back. After Constantine became Christian and the Roman Empire became a Christian empire, church and state started working together, so basically everyone became amillennial. That's why amillennialism is by far the majority view in church history. Thomas Aquinas, Martin Luther, John Calvin, all the major reformers and medieval scholastics were all amillennial, and basically every traditional Christian denomination is also amillennial. To be honest, it can be hard to tell the difference between amillennial and postmillennial. They both believe Jesus will return after the millennium, they both believe in a symbolic 1,000 years, they both believe the millennium is the church, and they both believe the church will impact the world. You might say post-millennials are the optimistic ones, but there are some amils who are also optimistic. You might say amillennials believe we're in the millennium now, but there's some post-millennials who also believe that. I'd say the main difference is whether we are promised that things will improve before Jesus comes back, or whether Jesus could return at any moment. He might even return right now. So next time your crazy aunt says return at any moment, he might even return right now. So next time your crazy aunt says current political events are going to make the rapture happen, you can ruin dinner by telling her that none of the church fathers believed in the rapture. So there are a lot of different theories about how the second coming is going to happen in relation to the millennium, but what all Christians agree on is that Jesus is coming back. So when he does, will you be ready?
On the Strength SMP, a server filled with Minecraft.
Okay, shut up.
What like the statistics are and stuff. Like, I don't know.
Statistics
like
about what?
Statistically, like how many kids actually do that. I don't know.
Yeah, so they don't release exact figures from our children's hospitals here in Canada, but it's for sure tens of thousands of kids across North America.
Like over what? In a year? Or?
So there's a few good articles you could look up. One's by Reuters, one's by Manhattan Institute. And if you like, you can email me and I can send you some statistics. But
sounds kind of gay.
Oh, in North America, each year there are probably about 2,000 children having double mastectomies as young as 12 years old.
There's no way.
All right.
Like I would love to.
You don't need to believe me. This is based on insurance data.
But I know, like in the States, like I've seen some data that shows it's like less than 200 kids a year.
No, that's completely false.
But that's coming from.
I mean, each like children's hospital here in Canada does more than that themselves.
There's no chance.
Well, okay.
Yeah. I just think your stats you're full of shit. You know, like I don't know.
It's based off insurance data. If you have a phone, I can bring it up for you right now.
I'd love to.
Sure.
What would I look up to find that?
Well, there's a few articles. The most recent one is from the Manhattan Institute. So Google Manhattan Institute, gender, transition statistics, try that.
This one here? Here, make it brighter. Examining global shifts in gender.
No. A consensus no longer, that one. That's a good introductory article for you to read.
Cool. Yeah, I'll read this. I find, because I've looked into this a lot, and I haven't personally been able to find any stats that are near close to the numbers that people like you are pushing. You know.
So it's not numbers that I'm pushing; it's just what is. You can look at. Look up.
I think
Here, take a couple notes here if you want to. The CAS review is a good study for you to read. This is the world's most comprehensive, systematic review of all the scientific literature that's been done.
One sec, let me make a new note.
So look up the CAS review, C-A-S-S.
I've read that.
By,
I've heard that. Yeah. What else?
well, if you've read it, you'd know it's 380 pages long.
Well, I've looked through it, skimmed through it. But,
So at the Tavistock,
but the CAS
do you know what the Tavistock is?
Tavistock, like T-A-V-I-S.
T-O-C-K. Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, so that was the gender clinic in England.
Okay.
They had 15,000 kids on a waiting list when they shut it down.
Okay.
And you're trying to tell me this is affecting like a couple hundred kids. That's one gender clinic with 15,000 just on the waiting list.
But what, like shutting what down exactly? Like,
Oh, they stopped prescribing puberty blockers to all new patients in England. They stopped it in Scotland. They all but stopped it in Finland, where they conducted a systematic review and found this isn't helping kids. They stopped it in Sweden, where they also conducted a systematic review of their own. You can find all these reviews, by the way, on a really great website called segm.org.
SEGM?
Yeah, the Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine.
Okay.
It's
Do
done
you
by
think any
doctors.
of these, like CAS review and these, have any like biases of their own, or?
Well, you should read it.
I will. Because I did read the CAS review. I think
I'm not here to offer you my opinion.
Okay.
Well, you for sure haven't read it. I can tell by the way you speak it.
Okay. I mean, I did look at it. It came out like a year or two ago, didn't it?
Yeah, about a year
Yeah.
ago.
So I mean, it's hard for me to speak for something that I read that long ago.
Mhm.
But from my brief recollection, I think it was a pretty biased study.
No, that's totally absurd. It's not just a study, it's looking at all the studies. It's not just a study, it's looking at all of the studies that have been done. That's what a systematic review is.
So just upon quickly looking it up, it's a non-peer reviewed report.
The reports it's reviewing itself are peer-reviewed reports. Anyway, you can look it up. That's done by a left-leaning pediatrician named Dr. Hilary Cass, not by some politician.
Oh, yeah, I'll check it out.
And I would encourage you also to read the WPATH file. That was written actually by a woman here in Ottawa, a friend of mine, named Mia Hughes. That's leaked documents, leaked videos from these trans health professionals themselves. Coming straight from the mouths of the so-called experts. Tough to refute. Yeah.
I don't like to talk about things that I'm not informed on.
All right.
But I do think that it's a bit inflammatory what you do, and maybe blowing things out of proportion a little much. Like, do you think that there's any case at all where puberty blockers would be acceptable, or like, do you think that it's totally?
Well, there's no such thing as a transgender child.
Okay. Like, do you think that gender dysphoria is the thing?
Sure, distress about one's sex is real.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you think that there's medication that can like help somebody along?
No, we shouldn't be medicating kids who have distress about their sex.
Doesn't Canada have a law? Like, don't you have to be 16 or older?
No.
You can get like any sort of gender-affirming surgery and things like that.
So, puberty blockers are given according to the World Professional Association of Transgender Health, for transgender health. The recommendation is to give them to children at Tanner stage 2 of puberty. So that's the beginning of puberty for girls. That's about 2 years before they've had their periods.
Bro.
They're going to be 9, 10 years old. Boys are typically hitting puberty 6 months to a year later. So those are pretty little kids. Some of them still believe in Santa Claus. And when you look at the CAS review, for example, what you'll learn is that 70% of the kids going to their gender identity development service there had 5 or more coexisting mental health comorbidities. Not just one problem, not just 2. On average, the majority had 5 or more. Depression, anxiety, abuse, sexual abuse is extremely common. In 52% of cases, one of the parents was either deceased or out of the picture. Parents were statistically 10 times more likely to have been sex offenders. These are kids in state care who are widely overrepresented, and it's children with autism. Majority of these cases, according to their own statistics, 35%.
Bro, what are you kidding?
This was out of a sample of 1,069 children. 35% had moderate to severe autism, never mind the more mild cases.
What?
So, the lie that's going around is that there's such a thing as a child born in the wrong body. And I think that's an extraordinarily abusive message to send. We shouldn't be telling our children they're born wrong. We should be telling them they're beautiful just as they are. We should tell them there's no right or wrong way to be a boy or girl. And I know you agree with all those statements.
I just think that the way you're framing it is maybe a little disingenuous.
Like what?
Like you said, I have to do more research. Right?
So what way am I framing that's disingenuous?
Well, I just think that it's something that's you're blowing out of proportion. That I think that this targets a very small portion of the population. I don't think it's something that's being pushed on kids. Like I think that discussing it and pushing something on kids is fully different, right?
So another article you can look up, and this was reported by the New York Times a few years ago, who are traditionally on the opposite end of this argument from people like myself. They reported, now this is just in the US, 300,000 children between the age of 12 and 17 have been diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Those are just official diagnoses.
Okay, and this is a New York Times article?
There's another organization called Do No Harm. This is an organization of doctors. They also released statistics on this last year. And they have a database from each individual hospital, how many kids that they've seen based on insurance data. Now this insurance data is probably only capturing about half of the kids because it doesn't capture those who privately paid, of course. It doesn't capture those who use donor funds. There's a lot of that going on. It only captures children who had an official gender dysphoria diagnosis, and they don't even use that diagnosis a lot of the time. According to Jamie Reed, a whistleblower from the gender clinic at the Washington University Gender Clinic in Missouri, only in about half the cases are they even diagnosing gender dysphoria for these children. And she was a whistleblower who will tell you all the same things I'm telling you. She was case manager. She oversaw 1,000 kids over the 4 years that she worked there. And blew the whistle on this because it's total madness what's going on. But this Do No Harm database, it's not including veterans pay, it's not including all the Kaiser Permanente plans either, which is a huge number. But you'll get figures there.
Okay.
And it's for sure over the years, it's been tens of thousands of kids being medicalized, hundreds of thousands diagnosed. And what's interesting when I have these conversations, and I've had tens of thousands of them over the years all across the world, nobody can really even tell me what a gender identity is. If I say, what does it mean for a girl to be a boy? No one has an answer.
Right.
It's just a feeling, apparently.
Sure.
But our sex is not a feeling.
Well, so, I mean, you've probably heard my typical answer, right? Like, I think sex is biological. I'm by no means a scientist, too, so I'm...
I like how you need to be a scientist to identify sex.
But I think that, you know, sex is, you're obviously born with a certain gender, but I think the way that people present themselves and maybe feel comfortable in public could be a little more fluid than that.
So you can express yourselves however you want.
Yeah. And you have no problem with adults, right? Like, if you're 18 and over, somebody then wants to...
Oh, I do have problems with that in terms of you've got, so someone turns 18, their birthday. They can now walk into Planned Parenthood, walk out 20 minutes later with a prescription for testosterone. Yeah, that's not okay.
How come?
Because these practitioners know absolutely nothing about this young person, and they're putting them on hormones which are going to cause irreversible damage. They should be screening for trauma. They should be screening for abuse. They should be dealing with other mental health comorbidities. Because as we know in the vast majority of these cases, there are other mental health things going on. But right away, in one appointment, and they know absolutely nothing, they're harming these young people for life. So I don't agree with that at all.
And this is, see, again, I don't really know. Like, so you can go in and 20 minutes later, they're sure you want. Like, they're literally. Like,
that's right. Because with the trend, and what's really changed, especially over the last 10 years, it gets more of the way all the time, is the activists, the trans activists, they do even question gender identity is sort of abusive. Why would you even use therapy? You're therefore saying there's something wrong with my gender identity, which is their argument. And so the trend is to go away from therapy altogether. And this practice of transitioning children, this really took off around 2015. This started in the Netherlands the decade before that with a handful of kids. And they established what was called the Dutch Protocol, where they would screen for other mental health comorbidities.
Yeah.
They wouldn't start them on cross-sex hormones, the opposite sex hormones, until they were 16.
Right.
And then when this came over into the US and Canada, these safeguards over time have just completely vanished.
Excuse me.
And kids are getting puberty blockers here at Ottawa's Children's Hospital on their first appointment. It's not always the case, but it is the case in statistically in about half of these cases. And again, there's another site for Canada you can look up called Canadian Gender Report, where they have statistics on this. But we don't have as many statistics in Canada because they don't release them.
Just because I know, like I've said, that I've looked up numbers in the States and it's nothing close to what people...
So I've just given you all the factual
yeah, so
statistical
I am
numbers.
going to look through those,
Yeah.
for sure. I find that things are blown out of proportion.
And again, those numbers are probably about ballpark 50% because it's not including private pay, it's not including those without a gender dysphoria diagnosis, it's not including Kaiser Permanente and all that. Anyway, it doesn't even matter if it was, honestly, it doesn't matter if it was 100 kids being medicalized or 30,000, which is more like what it's been in North America. This ideology itself is damaging. To have children believe that there's something wrong with them, that they're supposed to be something they're not, that's an abusive message. And if this was if we were just medicalizing hundreds of kids, I'd still be doing this, because this ideology itself is the root of this evil. Gender ideology is a new idea. It's an extraordinarily damaging idea. And it's mostly affecting kids who are already vulnerable and already hurting in some form or another. And like in a cult, what happens is they get love bombed, they get a lot of attention and affection right away, whereas before maybe they were feeling like a misfit. And now they're getting tons of love on social media. And they're falling for this lie that the reason they're unhappy is because they were born in the wrong body. And that's damaging on its own. What follows from that in far too many cases is the medicalization. And in Canada, and you can look this up, National Post has reported on it. I don't always love their reporting on this, but there's, I mean, facts are facts. They're definitely doing double mastectomies on 14-year-old girls in Canada. Okay. In the US, they're doing it as young as 12. Again, from insurance data.
Because I also, another thing that I've read is that a lot of the numbers that come from like gender affirming surgery and things like that are actually like males getting breast reductions and like females, same thing, right?
So that's not what this is. So again,
I know the numbers get kind of skewed because they get lumped in with all this.
Well, you can read all the things you want to read, but in that Manhattan Institute article, they give a range, and these are conservative numbers. Again, they're going to be higher because we don't have all the data. But it was something like a range of between 50 and 179 girls under the age of 12 and a half have had double mastectomies. So
how many, sorry?
It's a range of 50 to 179.
Okay.
Under the age of 12 and a half.
Yeah.
I've got a woman from Kaiser Permanente. Her name's Kellen Lackhart. She now identifies as a man. She's a psychologist there at their clinic in Oakland. And I've tweeted this out many times. If you email me, I'm happy to send you the video. But she admits on camera that they cut off the breasts of a 12-year-old girl, and they've done vaginoplasties on 16-year-old boys, having started the process at 15. Now, when she says starting the process, what she's probably referring to is hair removal, which they do 6 months to a year in advance. Otherwise, you get these ingrown hairs and infections, and it's a disaster.
Right.
And that happens in these cases anyway. And they have huge medical complications. Scott Nugent is one that comes to mind. She's a woman who transitioned as an adult, but almost died.
Yeah.
Had the phalloplasty done, where they carve off your forearm tissue and fashion it into a fake phallus. But they're doing this on kids, man, and they're autistic kids, they're kids who've had sexual abuse. You can go watch a video of mine from UCLA where a young woman named, here, just come this way a little bit if you don't mind.
I'd rather not be honest.
Okay.
I'd probably already.
Yeah, you are. It's just the cars are coming close to you.
Okay.
This girl, Clementine, she'd suffered child sexual abuse as a 7-year-old. She naturally wasn't really looking forward to becoming a woman.
Right.
It wasn't just a one-time thing. She'd had some continuing childhood sexual abuse. At the age of 12, she was seeing her school counselor, who decided that because she didn't want to be a woman, she must be trans. And so this idea was planted into her head. Her parents were told she was trans and that they'd better take her to the gender clinic. So they went to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, where they saw Dr. Johanna Olsen Kennedy. On the first appointment, Johanna Olsen Kennedy, who is one of the premier doctors in the world doing this, one of the premier experts, she was given nearly $10 million by the NIH to conduct a study that she buried, still hasn't been released, because she didn't like the results. But she separated Clementine from her parents at the age of 12. On the first appointment, she prescribed her puberty blockers. Separately, she told her parents they could have a dead daughter or a live son, which is the classic coercive, manipulative garbage used to get these parents to go along with this. At 13,
That's like a Jewish
pushed her onto
book
testosterone.
Line.
At
That's
14,
a line.
She pushed her to get a double mastectomy. She told her that they get better results when they're done young. The testosterone caused psychosis. She went off it at 17. She officially detransitioned at 19. But she's now suing. Her lawyers are Campbell Miller Payne, a law firm out of Texas. They have about 13 different lawsuits going on. And honestly, hers is like a classic case.
So are there ever situations where it ends up benefiting someone long term? Like, is there anybody going through serious gender dysphoria that actually could potentially use puberty blockers?
Well, there are people who are going to claim it's helped them. I hear this all the time. I don't necessarily believe it. You know, when you talk to someone in a cult, they're all going to tell you that they're happy. And when these people come up to me and they tell me how happy they are, they're often shaking and screaming and sometimes crying. So there's mental health issues going on.
Okay.
But the detransition rate, it takes time.
Right.
Because they've chased this impossible goal of changing sexes. And their whole community kind of pushes this. So there's social pressure. And it usually takes like 7 to 10 years for them to say, my gosh, what have I done? You know, they get to be 25.
Right.
Coincidentally, the same.
That, like,
yeah.
You trust what these people are saying, you don't trust what these people are saying.
That's not what I said.
Well, you're saying you don't quite believe, that's pretty much what you said. You said you don't quite believe, like, right, people are kind of saying they're happy, but you don't believe them. So I'm just wondering how much your own biases are affecting the message you're pushing. You know, because clearly you don't agree with transgenderism at all, it seems.
Yeah, that's right. So here's the thing. We know from studies historically that more than 80% of kids with gender dysphoria, back when this just affected a handful of the population, 30, 40 years ago, this was 1 out of 30,000 kids, and it was mostly boys. Today it's completely flipped. It's mostly girls, 3 to 1 girls versus boys going to these gender clinics.
Okay.
And we know historically from these academic studies, which are all up on my website, by the way, that more than 80% just grew out of it when they went through puberty. Their gender dysphoria desisted.
Okay.
And we're talking about severe gender dysphoria from a young age.
Right.
Not, I'm 14 now and suddenly I realize I'm born wrong. Consistent, serious distress. And in the vast majority of cases, they outgrew it. And the majority of these kids, according to the biggest study that was done, which was only 139 participants, but this didn't affect a lot back then, and this was a study with just boys, 63.6% grew up to be gay.
Okay.
So people talk about conversion therapy. The real conversion therapy going on is taking kids who grow up to be gay, these gender non-conforming children, these effeminate boys, telling them that they were born wrong, sterilizing them, maiming children, turning them into lifelong pharmaceutical patients, sending teenage girls into menopause, cutting out their womb as teenagers because 4 or 5 years of testosterone causes vaginal and uterine atrophy, when a lot of these kids would just grow up to be gay. And you talk to gay men, you should do this. Go talk to the gay community. I've done it a lot. I've got a lot of gay friends. They'll tell me if they were growing up today, they would have for sure transitioned.
Is he gay?
So what's the difference? Gay or trans? What's the difference? Gender nonconformity, both sides. I can define what gay is, same-sex attraction. Right. You can put a gay man in an MRI machine and show him gay porn, and the parts of his brain associated with sexual arousal will light up. Right.
Imagine putting an MRI with...
thing.
I'm a guy in an MRI with porn.
What is it?
Quick, show him the furry hentai vor porn.
Your phone is okay. This one twisted again. Oh, there's a piece of...
Oh, he's the guy who wouldn't move. Yeah, he's the guy who gets like intimidated by cops. Yeah, I remember that guy.
Would you like to discuss this or just do insults? Yeah, that's what I thought. Man, young women are not nice to me. Hi, I love you too. Here come the police. Hello, officers. Great. How are you? We are having conversation. Yeah, so my name's Chris. I'm from Canada. This is Lois.
Part of the world?
Yeah. And I'm actually in town. I'm essentially suing the government on a freedom of speech issue. But
so you're from Canada? So
yeah.
You come down to Melbourne.
Yeah.
To sue the government for freedom of speech issue.
Yeah, I have a 5-day hearing at the Administrative Review Tribunal.
You came all the way to Canada to sue someone from Melbourne? Okay.
I'm not suing someone.
No, suing the government.
Yeah. So I was here last year this time. Okay. I travel around the world having conversations about this subject.
Okay. That's cool.
And
we're not here to gauge a conversation about the subject.
Yeah.
We're here just to work out what's...
Yeah, I just talk. I stand here quietly. If people approach and want to have a conversation, I have a conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. Is that... We're on a public land. We're allowed to talk to people, right?
Yeah, this is a public footpath.
Yeah.
But you can't encroach onto university.
Right, that's why we came over here.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, like I said, this is a public footpath, and yeah, like I said, you just can't encroach onto university property.
Totally.
If you do, and security asks you to leave, if they don't leave, then we can, then obviously we can move you guys on.
Right. Yeah, that's why we came over here, because we were standing about 7 feet over there.
Yeah.
And they told us the property line starts here. Yeah. I don't know if that's true or not, but.
Well, it is, yeah. So this is a public footpath. That's a campus. So yeah, that's why it's critical for us for that reason. And since you guys have complied, then that's all good. So
all right.
Since while we're here talking to you, might grab some details of you guys. Is your name?
What for?
Just speaking to you. So
yeah, I don't really see the purpose. I'm not violating any law. I don't have to give details, right? I'm happy to give details.
You don't
Plenty of police already in Sydney have my already in Australia have my details. Yeah. I just, from a principled point, I don't understand why I need to give you details.
Yeah, no, so you don't need to. I'm just speaking to you. Not myself we're speaking to you. That's why I was asking you for your details.
Yeah, I'm content to just not do that. Yeah.
That's fine. It's all good.
Yeah. Pretty. So are people allowed to just come up and interfere with my property like that?
Yeah. No one cares. Alright, so you guys are on public land, so we'll leave you guys to it. Alright, obviously, you know...
Oh, so you don't care that guy came up and interfered with my personal recording?
Alright, we're going to head off.
That's clearly impermissible behavior, but you don't care.
not saying I don't care. I'm just saying we're going to head off. You guys are on.
All right.
On public land.
Good stuff.
Okay. So.
What's your name?
Sorry.
What's your name?
My name's Mick Gazdi.
All right.
I'm from Melbourne West Police Station.
Fantastic. Badge number 37254. Thank you.
And what's your name?
Thank you. Chris. Billboard Chris.
Chris. Billboard
Yeah.
Chris. What's your last name?
Oh, you can find it online.
Online?
Yeah.
It's
not a secret.
Don't feel like telling me now.
It's not a secret.
It's not a secret. Why don't you just tell me then?
To be honest, I don't like how you've approached me, and I don't like your attitude.
What's wrong with my attitude? I'm friendly,
I don't think you are. I think you're contentious.
I'm smiling. I'm having a good conversation.
Yeah, you're passive-aggressively smiling.
I'm not being aggressive.
All right.
I thought Canadians were friendly folk.
Yeah, I thought Australians were too.
We are.
Yeah.
You're the one saying that we're not. So.
All right.
Maybe you want we don't want you here.
Well, I'm happy to be here, and I'm quite all right if you don't want me here.
I believe you are still there.
All right, sounds good. We got a little scene forming here. Oh, I can. This is a public space. There's no expectation of privacy in a public space. I mean, you're free to walk away.
Deal. Billboard Chris.
Good morning, everybody. Billboard Chris here. I just left my hotel, which is literally just a block away. It's Sunday morning. I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona at AmFest. And I thought I'd have some conversations this morning. And I've been outside for 30 seconds when I ran into Adam Vina, first person I've talked to today. And as luck would have it, these things seem far too coincidental. Adam is dealing with a very serious situation where his son has been taken away from him because the mother of your 5-year-old child wants to transition him.
Yes, sir.
So, Adam, I wish I could say great to meet you.
Yes.
It is great to meet you, but under these circumstances, it's such a serious, terrible situation. Maybe just tell us what's been going on with your son. He's 5 years old.
5 years old now.
Yep.
Now that I know it's grooming started at the age of 2. I received when he was 2, I received a picture text message from my son's mother of him in a pink dress. I spoke out against that, and I thought had everything had stopped. On my son's 3rd birthday is when my son told me that his mom bought him a pink dress. And I got down on one knee and I looked him in the eye and said, "Hey buddy, you're a boy and boys don't wear dresses." And we left it just as that. A couple days went by. I was really, really angry with it. So I sent off 46 text messages to her. No threats of violence. Never has there been any threats of violence to her or my son. And in those 46 text messages, she was able to get a temporary restraining order put on me, which kept me from my son. Fast forward to the court system. The judge from Pasadena, California, Judge Harvey Silverman, he ordered a gender assessment to be done on my son.
At what age? How old
I think he was between like 3.5 and 4 at the time. He was 4 years old to have a gender assessment done on him. I spoke out against that in court, but they still went along with it. So I requested to sit down, wanted to be personally there, physically there, to find out what questions they were going to ask my son, because in my opinion, when it comes to treating somebody for any type of disease, there's always steps in place. And in my son's case, it went from A to Z. They never treated it A, B, C, and D. They went, "Oh, you want to wear dresses?" Never asking why he wants that, nothing like that. They automatically assumed he wanted to be a girl.
Excuse me. Because his mom put him in a dress at what age?
She started at 2 years old.
So he's still in diapers.
Yeah, pretty much. She's still in diapers.
And the judge now just treats him as though he's a girl.
Yes, they refer to my son in court as my daughter. They refer to my son as she, her pronouns. I received an email from an anonymous parent from his private school letting me know that basically saying, "Adam, we feel that you need and have the right to know what's going on with your son." And at 4 years old, they treated him as full transgender. I received an email, an anonymous email from my son's mother telling the school that Aiden is now full transgender.
Isn't that so ironic? They're just basically against consent. They don't care about consent. They want to steal your children from you and mutilate them. They want to take the children out of your hands, castrate them, mutilate them, reprogram them, turn them into miserable slaves. But yeah, they don't care about consent. They want to feast on the young.
Gender at 4 years old. They denied me.
Were those their words? Full transgender?
Yes, sir.
Full. As if there's a part transgender or something?
Yeah. When we get off this thing, I can have you read the email, and you can diagnose that yourself. So I was denied to ask my own questions. I went as far as hiring my own child therapist to sit in on this assessment. They denied me that. And they also denied me a phone call to ask my own questions with the doctor. Not at one time have they ever sat me down, the father, to ask me what I think is going on with my son.
Yeah, fathers are second-class citizens, I'm telling you.
Yes, as it often is against men.
They hate fathers.
So you received a restraining order. The first one was for how long?
The first one was a TRO, which is a temporary restraining order for 3 years. Again, I'll tell your viewers and everybody, never has there ever been any physical violence towards her, never any physical violence towards my son. The only way that a parent or parents can be removed from a child's life is if there's abuse and neglect. And not at one time has there ever been any abuse or neglect either on my son or on her.
Right.
Because I emphasize that so much because people would think, oh, there had to be a bad reason for this father to be removed from his son's life. But in fact, there's been none of that. It's just been text messages saying my son is a boy, do not dress him as a girl.
Well, so to give a little context to this, there's a mom who I've been working with whose daughter, on the first day of school in grade 6 a few years ago, 3 years ago, decided to try out being a boy because the teacher asked her for her preferred pronouns. And this girl, the family had gone through a separation, the mom and dad had split up, they just moved. She developed really early, so
what
lots of
next?
things going on in her life
Yes, sir.
that were causing her distress. And she wanted to escape being a girl.
Right.
But the social workers contacted this mom, thanks to the school contacting the social workers, and this mom is as normal and beautiful and nice as can be. And they told her that if she didn't immediately affirm the new name and pronouns for her daughter, they considered it abuse. So that's what's going on with you in the state of California.
Yes.
You don't have to actually abuse your child. You have to simply not affirm the delusion.
Yes, sir.
And they consider that abuse.
Yeah.
So you had a temporary restraining order. Now what's the deal with the restraining order?
Now we went, the first judge recused himself from the case. Me and my attorney do not know why the California judge from Pasadena recused himself. From my understanding is that that's very rare for a judge to be so invested into a case and then just one day completely recuse himself. So now we're down at Los Angeles with a judge from the Los Angeles Family Court, Mark Duhas, and he is the one that ordered the 5-year restraining order. So that'll put me at 8 years completely disconnected from my son, and not being able to raise him as a boy, not be able to treat him as a man. I have missed going on now 4 Christmases. I still have Christmas gifts sitting at my house. One of my first videos I did on my Instagram was unwrapping his Christmas gifts from 3 years ago. Opposing counsel never at one time ever made it
That's funny.
made it
Go directly
for
into
him
it.
to be able to get his Christmas gifts. She told me that, oh, that's not my priority right now, is Christmas gifts. Opposing counsel has done, which was court appointed, has done nothing to re-engage the father and the son in this. We went 6 months in negotiations to get my visitations back, and to get an email from the attorney saying, I kept emailing, all right, give me this, give me that, what do I need to do to get back in my son's life? And only to receive an email, sorry, Adam, but we couldn't.
Yeah, they don't care because you have the wrong political opinions.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Adam, what's your handle on social media?
My handle is Adam Vina, ADAM dot Vina.
Yeah, you really can't just marry any woman. You really can't.
That's on X?
No, it's on Instagram.
Instagram.
Yes. I
Okay.
can barely handle one social media.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Adam Vina. Follow this guy on Instagram, adam.vina. He needs needs our support. Parents who are going through this, please reach out to him. Offer what advice you can. Adam, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
That's crazy. It's actually crazy. Yeah, you really just can't marry anybody because they'll use the state.
Good morning, Chairman Holly, Ranking Member.
Shut up. Kill yourself. You really just can't marry anybody because they will team up with the state, form a demonic. Your wife will form a demonic union with the state to rape your kid, and you need a united front against the state. Even with a united front against the state, you're not guaranteed to win. Yeah, I'm convinced that the best tool to resist oppression is the family unit. And any tool that disrupts the family unit is aiding in oppression. So if we want to talk about oppression politics, I think anybody who's disrupting the natural family unit or putting in barriers between the family unit, like feminism, like transgender ideology, those are the people aiding in oppression. All the people like automating complex resources. What? Oh. Which I think is a pretty reasonable statement. Yeah, from my vantage point, anybody who imposes on the family unit is aiding in oppression and tyranny. You're part of the tyrannical apparatus. So that involves taking away rights from fathers. That's feminist culture, framing men as abusers, and putting women against men in their natural role of submission to the father. That's hyper-individualism that tells children to throw the middle finger to their parents. That would be gender ideology that uses the state to separate children from parents and teach them gender ideology. I mean, that really includes things like evolution, which trivializes the human relationship to that of monkeys. All right. I'm going to take a quick break, get some food. We'll be back.